CNN. Because Ukraine faces a losing dignity or U.S. support. I mean, look, man. Zelensky, just go ahead and tone it down. You can't beat Russia. Just go ahead and you might have to give us some land. I mean, it wouldn't have been like this if you'd just, didn't drag this out for 2-3 years, but here we are.
Зараз один з найважчих моментів нашої історії.
This is one of the most difficult moments in our history. The pressure on Ukraine is now at its most intense. Ukraine may now face a very difficult choice, either the loss of dignity or the risk of losing a key partner, or 28 difficult points, or an extremely harsh winter. The most difficult and further...
So yes, one of the main reasons why they need to give up soon is the winter is coming. And I know this ain't Game of Thrones, but the winter is literally coming. And when the winter comes over there, it's a little bit colder than over here. And guess what? It's a gruesome winter. And having that type of warfare in the wintertime while your people have no electricity, no heating, and the water is starting to become a problem, that's not the best for Ukraine. I mean, Russia, they're doing just fine. Yeah, their cities is getting attacked and they're working that out. Trust me, to the best of their ability. They're having outages too. But we're talking about people who can't even power their cities right now, who honestly look like they're about to starve and freeze through the winter. If they don't give up, it's looking like they're effed. And we don't want that for the Ukrainian people. And Zelensky shouldn't either.
Risk our life without freedom, without dignity, without justice, and believing someone who has already attacked us twice.
That major partner is the United States, who this week presented a framework to Kyiv to end Russia's war there. In a radio interview with Fox News, President Trump said that he had given Ukraine until Thursday to respond. Ukraine's government said...
Really? Now, shout out to, she says, yes, the party of tolerance have some of the most intolerant, racist, mean, and hateful people I have ever met as a non-Christian, bisexual, trad woman. I'm weak. Shout out to. But yeah, I mean, that is the problem. They come with the worst type of character, and I just do not understand why. I mean, here's the thing. If you want to get people onto your side and you want to you want to disillude people out of this cult, why come at them disrespectfully? Why try to treat them like they're stupid, like they're just not a regular human being? Actually, you try to dehumanize them, and then you think that you're going to reach them? Whereas, at a certain point, these guys aren't arguing in good faith. And they never were. I wish they were. I'm trying to argue with the Dems in good faith. I'm not trying to sit there and say they're wrong on everything. I'm not trying to sit there and say they're just complete fucking idiots. Okay, some of them are, but not all of them. And I would hope that the Democratic side or that the liberals would try to come at us with the same way, or just try to practice the same type of grace. But then again, I don't know. Maybe it's a Christian thing. Maybe just my Christian background.
Framework.
It is what it is with that one. But shout out to Asher Rose. Appreciate the support, sis. She says, that's why I that's why I always highly respected your stream, because you are respectful to both sides. I try to. Zach, I don't really see a point in, honestly, getting into I'll be real with you, getting into a shouting match with a fellow American. I want to hear them out. I want to hear everything they got to say. I don't cut them off until they honestly just start talking some complete BS. Or they just try to say I'm doing something that I've never done. I mean, other than that, I let them talk. Well, hold on. I'm be real with you. I let some of them say some complete BS and just sat there and laughed. So hold on. I'll take that back.
Kyiv to end Russia's war there. In a radio interview with Fox News, President Trump said that he had given Ukraine until Thursday to respond. Ukraine's government says that it is carefully reviewing the Trump administration plan. And earlier, President Zelensky held an urgent call with the leaders of Britain, Germany, and France to discuss this plan. The U.S. framework was drawn up in secret by the U.S. and Russia without consultation from Kyiv or Europe. A draft seen by CNN shows the proposal includes the Kremlin's maximalist demands, requiring Kyiv to half the size of its army and cede all territory lost to Russia in the past 3.5 years of war. Under the draft framework, Luhansk and Donetsk would be recognized as de facto Russian territories, as well as Crimea, which has been occupied by Russia since 2014.
I mean, yeah, honestly, that been Russia at this point. We all knew Crimea was going to be Russian. But the Donetsk, what? So basically, yeah, they're taking like they're taking everything right here. Everything right here is gone. Now Ukraine can go ahead and keep the rest, but everything right here, done for. It's over for them. They're cooked. Russia's taking over, and let's be real, those places already kind of a Russian speaking already. But otherwise, yeah, they're cooked.
Russia would also keep parts of Kherson and Zaporizhia.
Damn.
CNN's Nick.
I mean, this is a complete, bro. Why? I didn't want to be right about this. I didn't want to be right by the fact that, yo, they're gonna probably give up more land than they were. Honestly, that data kept just giving up. That's what sucks about this. I kind of knew that this was going in the direction of where Russia wanted it. Because think about it. If Russia was really losing on the battlefield, why are they not the ones begging for it to stop and Zelensky's just running game on them? That's not how things are playing out. I mean, if Russia was losing, I mean, why is Zelensky over here asking Trump to give them missiles so they can fight on an even playing field? I'm just saying, it was written on the wall all before us, but everybody wanted to sit there and ignore it for some reason. The liberals did, and maybe some of the conservatives all wanted to sit there and ignore it because of what? You wanted a proxy war? Oh, what? F Putin at the detriment of Ukrainian lives.
Walsh is in London. Our Kylie Atwood joins us from Washington, D.C. Nick, let's start with you. As we heard there, ominous words from President Zelensky, calling this one of the most difficult moments of the country's history. He went on to say, I will present arguments, I will persuade, I will offer alternatives, but we will definitely not give the enemy any reason to say that Ukraine does not want peace.
I mean, Zelensky, can you just shut the F up, bro? Just shut up. Just shut up and let it happen. Just roll over, bro. I'm gonna sound like a complete Russian propagandist, but roll over, bro. Putin has entered the jail cell. You ain't swole enough. You ain't doing enough push-ups. You're about to get taken. I'm sorry for such a crude way of saying it, but it's over. It's completely over. Like, you've lost on the ground. We weren't able to crush Russia's economy in time, and now they're getting more land than what we'd have predicted them getting. I mean, it's over. I didn't even think it was going to be this bad. So if I didn't even think it was going to be this bad, then I don't even know how, like, the White House still sees like this is progressive, or honestly, not the White House, but I don't see how the Ukrainian parliament sees how this is any, like, gaining them anything, how this is progressing them towards victory. I don't see it. And shout out to my man Gaming. He said Biden had a vested interest in funding the war. I mean, obviously, but I mean, at the detriment of Ukrainian lives. Like, look how much Ukrainian lives were lost just because you want to just keep this war afloat, or because the liberals are really the Biden and with the help of Hillary Clinton wanted war with Russia. And for some reason, it's always been about war with Russia. And we all knew what it was going to be when Ukrainian tried to get into NATO. We warned everybody. They told everybody, look, you can't let Ukraine into NATO. It got to remain a neutral state or Russia's going to attack. Y'all played with this man's gangster. And y'all found out something today. You know what y'all found out? Y'all found out this right here.
See, as you can see, the more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
Now look at this. Now look at this.
Just talk about the predicament that President Zelensky, that Ukraine is put in now, and the brief phone call that we now know that President Zelensky had with Vice President Vance.
Yeah, I mean, key, I think, will be what was said in that phone call in the past. Vice President Vance has been, particularly in the Oval Office blowout earlier on this year, the one to deliver the harshest messages towards Zelensky. We don't know if that was the case here, but listening again to President Zelensky's address there to the nation, this does not sound like a president who's saying to Ukraine, we have to go along with this. The choice between dignity and losing a major ally, well, it's fairly clear what he's suggesting Ukrainians should choose there. The choice of 28-point plan or an extremely hard winter. They've had hard winters in the past. This is clearly a process.
Well, they'll lose even more land because why? Their people barely have electricity. Some of these people are going to be going without heat. So people will be freezing to death during that winter unless it stopped. How do y'all want to play this? What do you guys want to see? And I'm hopefully this goes out to the people in Ukraine, because I know they translate my streams in y'all language. I see the analytics. So please ask yourself that question. And shout out to my man, Yes Dude. He says, how many times have I said it? Boy, do I hate being right all the time. This was inevitable. Me too, bro. I hated it. I didn't want to be right either, Yes Dude. I was sitting there going like, please don't let it be as bad as I think it's going to be. And then every day it just inch closer and closer to the worst case scenario. And here we are. Well, actually, the worst case scenario in my eyes was like what? Putin nuking Ukraine. This is like 3 steps down from that.
We don't know at this stage is precisely what concrete parts of a plan that was widely leaked, perhaps initially elements of it by Russia to show they were trying to get a peace process moving, perhaps then bits of it leaked by Ukraine and Europe in the hope, perhaps misguidedly, that the distinctly pro-Russian element of this plan would kind of torpedo it in the early stages. That hasn't happened, and instead it's kind of morphed now into this document that has a life of its own, clearly in which the Trump administration is deeply invested. There are things in there which would be militarily and politically, frankly, suicidal to start a rhetoric on it for Zelensky. He can't cede territory, particularly in the domestic political bind he's in with the corruption scandal swirling around his inner circle. That would be a phenomenally hard ask. He certainly can't agree to elections in 100 days after the signing of a deal. Even if he's not on the ballot, he'll be creating an electoral process there, rush with demobilization, wartime, messing it up, that will create a government whose legitimacy will be questioned from day one. And he certainly, I don't think, can agree to some elements of the decisions that get made by Russia in this document about who gets to join NATO in the future. So even when you read the text of the early versions that we've been seeing leaked to the media here, it's clear this originated in the Russian language. Biana, you know, when you read certain elements of English that look like they may have started in Russian, there's some parts of this document that clearly hark too closely to that. What we don't know at this point, though, is exactly what modifications are being suggested, agreed, what precisely this pressure for Thursday is around. Do they expect that 28 points to be agreed then? Well, that's frankly impossible at this stage. But it's important to just quickly remember the timing here. Not only is domestic political pressure on Zelensky possibly at its worst since the start of this war with this corruption scandal on the front lines, Pokrovsk is probably days, maybe weeks away from falling fully to the Russians. That's been fought over for over a year and will be a key victory that Moscow has been hankering for months.
What drafted proposal? Russia retains parts of Kherson, Zaporizhzhia. I'm not even going to try that. Zaporizhzhia or Pereza, however you pronounce it, it now controls. So pretty much, yes, it has been taking more and more land. What do we tell y'all?
Also, Russia moving fast in the Zaporizhzhia region, faster, I think, than anyone potentially thought. So a frontline emergency is coinciding with a domestic political crisis for Zelensky, and now with this extraordinary moment where he's had to address the Ukrainian people and say they may have to choose between their own dignity and keeping their key ally, the United States. We've seen pressure vacillate, and this pendulum of Trump's love of Kyiv versus Moscow vacillate, but there's clearly an acute level here. If you're Ukraine, do you just remember how you survived the last time it got this bad, or do you think there's something different now?
Can I ask you, Nick, if you know exactly what, if any, involvement Ukraine had in this? Were they blindsided by this proposal? Because there had been some reporting that perhaps a Ukrainian official had also been in Florida meeting with Steve Witkoff, though the majority of this reporting seems to suggest that this was drafted between just Witkoff and Russian envoy Dmitry Kirillov themselves.
I think the simplest answer to that notion of secret meetings is if you look at the text, well, any influence Ukraine thought it had in these meetings or presence it thought it had in these meetings hasn't really resulted in a document that includes much, if anything at all, in their favor. Even the clause about reconstruction of Ukraine is very complexly phrased. It potentially gives the possibility of that money going to rebuild areas of Ukraine that are actually Russian occupied, and through complex mechanisms through which the US says it might get 50% of the profits and other joint projects that the US and Russia will devise by themselves.
Really? So new plan for Ukraine. Ukraine cedes territory to Russia. I told you that was going to be the case. U.S. de facto recognition of Crimea and other land seized by Russia, aka that will no longer be Ukraine no more. It is now Russia. And of course, like I said about 4 months ago, Ukraine military reduction. So they're pretty much going to take away the Ukrainians' ability to fight or do this again. Yeah, I mean, actually, I could damn near say that yeah, I mean, Ukraine might be actually Russian now. I mean, at this point, considering how close it is to the border now, considering that they've taken land, reduced their military, they could damn near take Ukraine at any time.
Even that isn't really in Ukraine's favor. Yes, there's recognition of Ukraine's sovereignty in that document, but remember, too, sovereignty of what doesn't necessarily guarantee there won't be a third invasion. So yes, maybe there has been Ukrainian input. Whether that's actually translated into a document that's now in front of Zelensky and Trump and even Putin potentially for discussion, or the input has been lost along the way, we don't know. And that's, I think, why this moment is so key, because clearly Ukraine's sounding the alarm here, but we don't know the precise details of exactly what's concerning it.
Yeah, another party that was clearly not involved here from all of the reporting was Europe as a whole. Nick Payton Walsh, thank you. Let's go to Kylie Atwood. And Kylie, what more are we learning about this phone call between President Zelensky and Vice President Vance? We think back to that first meeting in the Oval Office, where the talking down to, the shouting between Vice President Vance towards President Zelensky was quite shocking to see. The relationship has improved a bit, but what do we know about this call today? Well, listen, we don't actually know a whole lot about the call yet, but to your point, it is interesting that the vice president is even becoming a critical player in this conversation overall. Obviously, there were those dramatic moments in the Oval Office earlier this year, but J.D. Vance, the vice president, has not been someone who has been viewed as a behind-the-scenes operator when it comes to driving a solution to end the war in Ukraine. These have been roles that have really fell on the shoulders of Steve Witkoff, who we know is still very actively engaged in this portfolio. He's the one who worked with Kirill in order to come up with this new 28-point proposal, but also Keith Kellogg, who was the president's special envoy for Russia and Ukraine. He was really leading the talks with Ukraine. We have learned that Keith Kellogg has told people that he's planning to leave the administration earlier next year. That will create a bit of a gap, a dramatic gap, really, in terms of who the Ukrainians rely on to talk with the Trump administration. And J.D. Vance is signaling today, and we'll see if this, pans out, that he might be the person to begin to step up and, converse with the Ukrainians on how to drive a solution here. We also,
I mean, about time, man. Let's see J.D. Vance show some leadership. I mean, hey, he shows that he can talk, so let's see some leadership quality. Like, let's see it.
Just heard from President Trump in an interview with Fox that next Thursday is the deadline that he is giving the Ukrainians to agree to this 28-point plan that the U.S. and the Russians have worked on together, that was presented to the Ukrainians just yesterday by the U.S. Army Secretary in Ukraine. President Trump also appeared to give some buffer room to that, saying that when things are going well, deadlines often change. So he's indicating that if the Ukrainians are effectively engaging, maybe that deadline for agreeing to this specific plan could change. But listen, it comes off of administration officials telling us that this leaked proposal was not necessarily the final proposal. But then you have President Trump saying that the Ukrainians have a week to agree to it. So even if it's not the final version, it does, in fact, have a lot of elements that the Trump administration is robustly behind. And that's significant. I also think it's
important. And if I could we're going to go over the 28-point plan and, as I have it summarized right here. So the first part is we're talking about general security framework. 1, reaffirming Ukraine's sovereignty in principle. Okay. 2, a big non-aggression pact. Russia, Ukraine, and Europe all promise no more invasions. The last 30 years, disputes are treated as resolved. All right. For the last 30 years, all disputes are treated as resolved. We're starting from a clean slate. So, yes, Russia, Ukraine, and Europe, I guess it's all good now. 3, no further NATO expansion, essentially locking the map as it is. So, yeah, Ukraine, you're not getting into NATO and you will remain a neutral state. I'm sorry, country. And 4, a U.S. moderated Russia-NATO dialogue on security issues aimed at de-escalating and future economic cooperations. As I said, so it looks like we're going to get our rare earth mineral deals out of Ukraine, deal out of Ukraine, but we might have to shake hands with Russia. I mean, it is what it is. And I'll get on to the next part of this as well, which would be the security guarantees and limit on Ukraine's military. So we'll get into that as well.
Important to point out that the administration is working off of this Gaza framework. They believe that this 20-point plan that they presented that led to a ceasefire in Gaza was effective. They're using that sort of framework to apply to try and end the Ukraine war. We'll watch and see how that plays out. These are very different conflicts, but the administration clearly feels that they have the wind at their backs in terms of, solving these crises that President Trump set out to solve, but has personally said have been very challenging for him to find a solution to.
And all right now, so as we get into the next video, I'll go ahead and I'll read off the next 5 to 10 points of the 28-point Ukrainian plan. So here we go for security guarantees and limits on Ukraine and U.S. conditions. So 5, Ukraine gets robust security guarantees. Wording is vague. And 6, the Ukrainian army is capped at 600,000 troops and cannot go past that. So yes, they will now intentionally have a smaller army than Russia. I mean, while Russia basically stands at probably about 1 million to 1.2 million now, Ukraine will only be allowed to have 600,000 troops. 7, Ukraine amends its constitution. Oh, wow. Okay, so Ukraine amends its constitution to never join NATO, and NATO formally promised it will never accept Ukraine. So it's going to be in their constitution to never be a part of NATO, and NATO is promising, and if this goes through, they'll be promising word for word this time. This will not be a verbal exchange. This will be written on paper that they will never let Ukraine in. Yes. And point 8, NATO agrees to no NATO troops in Ukraine. And 10, U.S. guarantees. U.S. guarantees come with the U.S. gets compensation for providing the guarantee. If Ukraine invades Russia, it loses the guarantee. If Russia invades Ukraine again, sanctions snap back and territory recognitions are revoked. So they're pretty much saying, look, we'll give you the land, we'll drop the sanctions, but if you attack Ukraine again, all that goes away. And of course, if Ukraine fires a missile at Moscow or St. Petersburg, the guaranteed is void. So yes, if Ukraine shows aggression, we pretty much avoid their protection and we let Russia do what they will with them. And if Russia breaks it, then we go ahead and slap them with sanctions, and we just pretty much say, well, now we no longer recognize what we gave you guys under this treaty. And we're right back at square one. All right, let's get into this video.
Called peace deal that, is...
Oh, and before I get right into it, shout out to, she says, I think if Zelensky had not canceled the election, it would not have been this bad. Putin even said he went harder after that happened. I mean, man, that's true. I mean, the thing is, there's always been corruption in Ukraine. Actually, that's a problem. There's too much corruption in Ukraine right now.
What Putin's been asking for all the way along.
He'll have to like it. And if he doesn't like it, then, they should just keep fighting, I guess. At some point, he's going to have to accept something. He hasn't accepted. You remember right in the Oval Office not so long ago, I said, you don't have the cards.
Oh yeah, now I will get on to the 11 through 14 points, and that's called what? Money, reconstruction, and Russia's economic comeback. So we'll also talk about that as well.
We actually just played that moment a few minutes ago, didn't we? Zelensky says Trump's plan comes down to, quote, either the loss of dignity or the risk of losing a key partner. Stark way to put it. Trump giving Ukraine 6 days to respond. But here are some of the concessions Ukraine must make. And as I said, these are things Putin's been asking for all the way along. It would give Putin Crimea. It would give Putin all of Ukraine's Donbass region, even though Russia does not control it. It would reduce Ukraine's military to 600,000 personnel, which is a cut of hundreds of thousands of troops.
Yep, cutting hundreds of thousands of troops will now be out of a job and forced to do something else. I don't know, probably have to get into the private market or But yeah, they'll have to get into there, and that's gonna be tough. But they'll find their way. And of course, they're barred out of Ukraine. I mean, they're barred out of NATO, so they can never be accepted by NATO or be violating the peace proposal. But let's get to points 11 through 14, because Ukraine gets EU market access. So let's get over to the good news of this peace deal, because everything sounds so doom and gloom, like Ukraine is just taking it right up there. But let's talk about the good stuff. So Ukraine gets EU market access and is treated as eligible for future EU membership. So you may not be able to get into NATO, but the European Union is always an option. So, there you go. Shout out to, and let's get to 12, big global redevelopment package for Ukraine, including a Ukraine development fund focused on tech, data centers, and AI, etc. U.S. Ukraine joint of gas. Well, okay, U.S. Ukraine joint control of gas pipeline and storage. And of course, urban reconstruction, infrastructure, and resource extraction project backed by the World Financing Bank, which, why these guys? Of all the people in the world, the World Bank? For all the people. But all right, it is what it is. And then, of course, 13, Russia gets a pathway. And yeah, they get a pathway back into the global economy. And I mean, all right, there you go. And of course, there's going to be a pause in sanction relief, a long-term U.S. Russia economic cooperation agreement in energy, infrastructure, AI, and Arctic projects. So it's basically a peace deal and trade deal in one. And Russia returns to the G8. Okay, I mean, I'm liking it. I'm liking it. And of course, they're going to release Russia's frozen assets. About 100 billion in Russia funds go to the U.S.-led Ukraine rebuilding vehicle. So, yep, the frozen Russian funds, instead of giving it back, they're going to go ahead and use it to rebuild Ukraine. I mean, that should make it happy somewhat. U.S. getting 50% of the profits. Europe matches this with its own 100 billion. So very much we'll be rebuilding Ukraine, and we're getting funded to do so. All right.
Which, of course, would completely make them unable to fight Russia again. And it would bar Ukraine from joining NATO, which, of course, has been Putin's goal also. These have been non-starters for Zelensky for years and for Ukraine. In 2023, when I interviewed Zelensky in Odessa, he told me then that the war could not end with Russia even controlling Crimea.
But that was delusional. We all knew that was delusional because he been had Crimea. Like, how delusional was it to think that y'all was gonna be able to push Russia back all the way back and even make him give up Crimea, even make Putin give up Crimea? That was just completely delusional. And now that the delusion has faded, I wonder where all my pro-Ukrainian guys will be. And here's the thing. I mean, I'm not mad at them for being pro-Ukraine. I'm mad at them for being so damn delusional. But don't worry, we'll get into the 15 through 20 points, which is enforcement, nuclear issues, and values. I mean, can't wait to hear about that.
Which is something, of course, Trump has made a core of this deal.
To be clear, in victory, in peace, is there any scenario where Crimea is not part of Ukraine?
It's in there, but I'm wrong.
It will not be victory then.
That's why
As for Putin, in addition to getting all of the things I listed, Putin would come back into the G8. Zelensky says Ukraine is now facing one of the most difficult moments in his history. Putin, of course, is thrilled with this, saying the plan could, quote, serve as the basis for a final peace settlement. Jim Sciutto is out front with breaking news because, Jim, I know you've been speaking with officials in the United States as well as Europe. I mean, I thought it was important just to mention that G8 point at the end. Like, on top of all of that, Russia is welcomed with open arms back to the core of the international community. And you are getting some very strong reactions to all of this hour, I know.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I don't know what it is about Putin, but bro, there's like some type of Putin derangement syndrome with the TDS as well, with the Trump derangement syndrome going down on the left. Like, I remember when I had Sid up here, and honestly, I see Sid as a reasonable Dem. I know you guys disagree with me, but I see Sid as a reasonable Dem. And even that man was spouting some old liberal, I mean, low-key neoliberal talking points. I mean, sounding like a Clinton talking about, oh, yeah, I would want us to put boots on Ukraine. I'd want us to defend Russia. I was like, bruh. Like, what? But, if you talk to this man about any other war, he'd be like, nah, I don't want beef with that. I'm good. So it was kind of confusing how, and this is a lot of liberals, that they were just so gun-ho into getting into war with Russia, but they did not feel like that with anybody else. It was a bit weird. And then they were kind of getting mad at Trump for not wanting to get into it with Russia.
I can say without exaggeration that my phone was lighting up today.
Yeah, but shout out what Laughing Panda. It's like, yeah, well, why do Dems want to supply the war? What do we have to gain? I'll tell you, not a damn thing. Not a damn thing.
With reaction from Ukraine to Europe to here in Washington, frankly, to this plan with one consistent description of it, that it would amount to a Ukrainian surrender. And keep in mind, and you know this well, that when Ukrainians say this, this is not just political talk, right? This is existential to them. They're talking about their survival of their country as an independent state. One Ukrainian military commander said this to me. He said, Trump is stubbornly pushing Ukraine into capitulation and also humiliating Europeans. The whole
what capitulation? No. They lost the war. They were losing the war. They got pushed into capitulation due to the results on the battlefield. Stop trying to blame Ukraine's performance on the battlefield on Trump. Like, that's completely unreasonable. But for some reason, that's what they're trying to do. Shout out to my man Guest Dude. He says Crimea didn't want to be part of Ukraine under the USSR. That green shirt is a dictator. I mean, he's talking about Zelensky. So I mean, shout out to my man Guest Dude, because yeah, he's right. He's right. And hopefully we can have him come up and explain that one. But all right, guys, let's get right back into it with the 15 to 20 point part plan of the Ukrainian peace proposal, which talks about enforcement, nuclear issues, and values. Now let's get into point 15. A joint U.S.-Russia security task force is created to enforce the deal. 16. Russia writes a non-aggression policy towards Europe and Ukraine. So it kind of settles the whole, oh, if Russia takes Ukraine, we're next. So, Russia was doomsdaying it, but didn't really do too much about it. But, hey, this guarantees that, kind of squashes that fear. And then 17, the U.S. and Russia extends key nuclear arms control treaties. So, yes, we're going to, chill out with the nuclear talks or the nuclear aggression. And 18, Ukraine stays non-nuclear under the NPT. And now we got the Zaporozhye, bro. How do you pronounce that? Well, Zaporozhye nuclear plant restarts under the IAEA supervision. Electricity is split 50-50 between Russia and Ukraine. Ooh. And then 20, both sides commit to educate social policies promoting tolerance. Ukraine adopts EU rules on minority and religious rights, and both pledge to repeal discriminatory measures and ban Nazi ideology. I mean, let's go. I told you there was Nazis. But they try to say we were liars. Then why is it part of the plan? Because there was Nazis in the Ukrainian army for some strange reason.
Idea looks naive and I spoke to a Ukrainian member of parliament, Helena Yanchenko, and I think quite deliberately she used some colorful language describing her reaction to this peace proposal as described. She said, it's like they are pissing on your boots and telling you it's raining. She went on to say to me, that, listen, this would be forcing my country, Ukraine, to its knees. What was interesting to me in particular, though, Aaron, was that criticism extended across the Atlantic to here in Washington and among both Democrats and Republicans. You heard the Republican chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee say this was unacceptable. And Brian Fitzpatrick, Republican member of Congress from Pennsylvania, he said this Russian drafted propaganda, that's how he's describing President Trump's peace proposal, must be rejected and disregarded for the unserious nonsense this is.
Wow. And you see what I'm saying? Like, these liberals turn into not liberals, but these Democrats turn into complete warmongering savages when it comes to Russia. Like, I'm gonna be real with you. I just read out like all the way down to point 20 of the plan. I didn't even get into the most explosive parts, which is point 21 through 22. I didn't even get into that yet, but overall, this kind of takes care of everybody's needs. I mean, Ukraine gets security guarantees, Russia gets let back in, and Europe is ensured that, well, look, Russia don't stay right where they're at. They're going to take some land. And I know you're going to be mad, but they're going to stay right where they're at, and they're not going to come get you guys next, okay? Okay, so calm all that down. Calm down the Putin arrangement, and everything's going to be good. All right.
And, this is important, Aaron, because there is discussion now of a discharge position on Capitol Hill that would allow Congress to vote on a new punishing sanctions package for Russia, in effect, over President Trump's
Hey, yo, shout out Shay Ron for sending the 100. Appreciate the support, my man.
support. And it's notable because we did see this just happen now on the Epstein files, right? You had Republicans defy their president. So the question now, is that criticism from Republicans of this peace proposal strong enough that they force through legislation to increase the pressure?
No, it better not be Republicans. Like, well, actually, no, that makes sense. I don't know what it is about both sides. When it came to Russia, all right, yeah, that makes sense. Because I don't get it either. But when it came to Russia, though, I thought like on our side, we didn't want to fund Russia no more. Well, Ukraine, we didn't want to fund Ukraine no more. We wanted the war to stop. Now, on the Republican side, they still have their warmongers, like, of course, Lindsey Graham, like he loved the Ukrainian war. And that's pretty much what the few Republicans who actually liked it was, of course, conservatives. But for some reason on the left, it was just like all accepted to be all out warmongers against Russia. Like y'all just hated Russia that much with a passion that I could feel from here. Like you hating Putin all the way over there in Cali, and I'm feeling it all the way over here in Ohio. Okay, it is that strong.
Pressure on Russia, as opposed to what we're seeing now, which is pressure on Ukraine.
Yeah, and to put all of those things in it, giving all that territory to Putin as well.
Yep.
All right, Jim Sciutto, thank you very much. I want to go now to Bridget Brink. She's the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine under Biden, as well as part of Trump's second term, now running for Congress in Michigan as a Democrat. Ambassador, I really appreciate your time. Just hearing what Jim Sciutto is reporting about.
Now, this is where we're going to get to the most explosive part of the 28-point plan. It's 21 and 22. 21, territorial settlements. So Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk are recognized de facto as Russian. Yes, they are no longer Ukraine. That is Russian territory or part of Russia. And it's being recognized by everybody, including the United States. Then there's Kherson and that one funny one that starts with a Z, Zaporizhzhia or whatever, are frozen at current contact lines, effectively recognizing a split. So there'll be a split. That means they're pretty much splitting that between Russia and Ukraine. Okay. Russia gives up other territory it controls outside of those 5 regions. So, yeah. So, and like I said, Russia was taking more land, like I said, to give up in the peace deal. I've been told you the reason why they're going past and they're pushing so hard is because they want to take land that they can give away and get what they want in the end. Because all they want with these 5 regions, let's take a little bit more, so it just looks like we're conceding. But really, it was all about those regions that they got. Ukraine withdraws from part of Donetsk it currently holds, and the area becomes a demilitarized buffer zone that the world recognizes as Russian. But Russian troops stay out of the buffer itself. Okay. All right. And then 22, both Russia and Ukraine promise to never to change these borders by force. Any security guarantees vanishes if either violates this. All right. And of course, I will later on get into 23 to 24, which is trade and humanitarian issues.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, specifically, the Republican congressman who calls this proposal unserious nonsense and says it reads like Russian drafted propaganda. Pretty stunning words to describe it, and to come, of course, from unelected.
I mean, damn, can y'all at least comb through it like I am? It don't seem that bad. It don't seem overly Russian. Now, okay, yes, it does. Yes, it does. But it's not that bad, okay? It's not like the complete takeover. They just lost the regions that they were losing already. So I'm not even sure why you guys are trying to frame this as, oh, it just looks like a Russian propaganda wrote this. Well, you want to know why? Because the Russian propaganda was right and they was winning on the battlefield.
Republican congressman, is this how you
common
see it?
sense? Just use a little bit of common sense.
Aaron, thank you so much for having me on. That's exactly how I see it as well. I believe that this so-called peace plan is really a capitulation by Ukraine, and it fulfills Putin's wish list. You went over some of the points. There are 28 of them, but I would just highlight 3. One is that Ukraine is required to cede territory that Russia could not take in 4 years of fighting. 2, it basically reduces the Ukrainian military to the point where it would be, and the country would be, weak and vulnerable. And third, it requires no NATO enlargement. That applies to Ukraine, but even more broadly. So it essentially delivers Putin a clear strategic victory. It's unthinkable for Ukraine,
GOP.
and it is not in our.
Well, look, GOP congressman on Trump's Ukraine plan, unserious nonsense. Yeah, bro. Well, we don't care what you think, bro. I'm be honest with you. Whoever that GOP congressman is, kick rocks. We don't care what you think. You just want to keep going to war because you're a neoconservative. We don't care. Any Republican that's speaking out against Trump's peace plan, just kick rocks. We do not care.
National security interests. Appeasement never works to end war. It didn't work in 1938, and it's not going to work today.
It is incredible after all of the back and forth, right? And the failed summit, and then Trump talking tough, and then this is what gets put on paper. I mean, I think after all of that, it is still somewhat stunning, Ambassador. And Zelensky insinuated in what I played that if he doesn't accept this deal, right, that the choice is either Ukraine or lose American support, right? That was a very explicit choice. Trump was asked about that in the Oval Office earlier, and he didn't address it directly. He certainly didn't deny it. So what do you think is happening here? And what message does it send Putin that this would be put out there in the way it did? No NATO enlargement of any sort. All the land that he had wanted in Ukraine, that he's back in the G8. What does Putin get from this?
I mean, access back into the global economy. I mean, if we can help his economy recover from the lashing we was giving it for conducting the war. I mean, that's pretty much what he gets. Actually, damn near Putin gets the land. He gets the sanctions lifted. He gets let back into the G8 and let back into the global economy. We might start seeing more made in Russian products. I mean, he damn near got everything he ever wanted and more. Like, bro, this man over here popping vodka bottles right now as we speak.
Gets everything that he wants. And maybe I'll say just the message I think we should be sending is that America does not bow to dictators. It's just not who we are.
I mean, we're not bound to dictators. They are. Like, bro, they got to give up Ukrainian land. We're not giving up American land to Russia. Ukraine's giving up their land to Russia. Okay, don't try to make it seem like we're the ones giving out land. All right, they lost it. That's on them. Don't try to make this about us. Keep us out of this.
And what we need to do is fight for freedom and democracy at home and abroad. And the reason that I resigned from my position and spoke out and am running for Congress is because we cannot be an America that is undermining our own democracy, stripping people of their health care, and destabilizing our own economy. Or even, as of yesterday, having our head of state actually threaten members of Congress who have also served our country. So,
and we'll get into that as well, because they were speaking a bit insurrection-y, and I can see why Trump lashed out, but I do not agree with Trump's wording whatsoever. Like, the way he could have worded that way better. Actually, if he was going to talk like that, he shouldn't even have said anything.
This is why I'm here, and this is why I'm running. We need to stand up, and we need to speak out, and we need to be the America that supports our foundational values.
And you are speaking out. Some of the others we've heard speaking out. I mean, I talk about Brian Fitzpatrick. There are others. But one of the strongest things was actually said from one of the top officials in Estonia, which has a lot at stake at this, right, when it comes to Putin and his territorial ambitions. Marco Mickelson said, if Ukraine accepts this, there will be no Ukraine anymore. If Europe accepts this,
I mean, yeah, there will. There'll just be a smaller one. I mean, that may not be what you want to hear. I know you're looking at me like, bro, there'll still be Ukraine. Just a smaller one. That's it. You know, these things happen throughout time.
We must prepare for a direct war with Russia, which are stunning words in the context of what we have now heard out of senior French officials more than once in the past 6 months, which is that the French people should be prepared for the possibility that French children will die fighting a war with Russia. Do you think this is a reality?
I think this proposed plan will not end the war. It will only lay the groundwork for future war. And
How?
so it is a danger.
How? Did you read it, woman? Did you read this? This woman did not read this, lying through her teeth. Like, bro, and shout out, yes, dude, because that was funny what you said. Like, does she ever open her mouth fully? But not, I do not know, because she has not one time. But how? It literally ensures whatever's left of Ukraine. It ensures the safety of Ukraine. It ensures the safety of all of Europe. It ensures the safety of Russia, United States. People start making money, things start getting rebuilt, and the war is ended. What the hell is wrong with that? Like, how can y'all make this a bad thing? You're literally going to play off the uninformed population who's not going to want to read out this 28-point plan. And I would advise you, if you hated the plan so much because it's giving land to Ukraine, read through it completely. And trust me, you might actually get down with it. Maybe.
To Ukraine, to Europe, and to us, because if Ukraine is taken and more pressure is put on other NATOs, including other allies, including NATO allies, that also brings the United States directly into this war.
So she didn't read the plan. Obviously, she did not read the plan, because in the plan, it says that Russia loses everything. They lose sanction. They lose recognition of the land that they now have if they attack Ukraine.